Alright, hey there. This is going to be a video about solving equations with the quadratic formula. So, the quadratic formula is what I wrote up here in red. It's x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So, you've probably in your class started memorizing this, at least by now. And if you haven't, I would recommend memorizing it as soon as possible, but you're going to memorize it before teachers actually give you problems where you'll need it. But I'm going to explain it to you in this video just in case you're having any trouble with it. So I have something below it. This in green and white is the regular form of a quadratic equation. You're usually going to see, equations you'll see is like x squared plus 6x minus 15, So this is the form with it. And we use these letters A, B, and C to denote like certain numbers called coefficients that are going to go beside the x or by themselves, which is called a constant. So let me show you how to use this formula. I'm going to leave it to yourself to memorize it. I would really recommend memorizing it because it's going to be useful and you're going to need it in the future. But I'm going to show you how to use it with a problem right here. An example of a problem you'll need it on is x squared plus 5x minus 7 equals 0. So once you look at this problem, you can tell you can't factor it in the normal way, like with the negative 7, where you would take it off to the side and say, let's see, what multiplies into negative 7? You got negative 1 and 7, you've got 1 and negative 7, that's really all. None of those add up to 5. So this isn't going to work out with the normal way, unfortunately. So we're going to have to use a different way. And I just did a video on completing the square. That's one option, but since this number 5 is an odd number, not an even number, it makes it a bit harder. You could still use completing the square, but personally, I would use the quadratic formula. So let me show you exactly how you can use the quadratic formula. All you got to do is actually really simple. Once you have the formula memorized, it's really simple to get. All you got to do is think about what's my A, B, and C values. So in this problem, you should be able to tell our C value is going to be negative 7, our B value is going to be 5, and our A value is what's next to the x squared, which is nothing, so that just means it's 1, because 1 times x squared is just x squared. So I'm going to write this out to the side. We've got that A equals 1, B equals 5, and C equals negative 7. So once we have that, we can go ahead and just plug those straight in to the quadratic formula that we should have memorized. So you realize we're trying to find x here. Whenever you're solving an equation, you're almost always going to solve for x or whatever is in this form. So we just simply do that by putting it into the formula. You got x equals negative b. So our b is 5. So up here we're going to have negative 5 plus or minus, and you've probably seen that plus or minus in the past. That means that there's a positive side and a negative side of what's coming next. And it means that we're going to have two solutions. In a quadratic, you're always going to have two solutions. So you need the plus or minus to have it separated into two solutions. So we have negative 5 plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. Our b, again, is 5. So you got 25 minus 4 times a times c. So I'm going to go ahead and write that 4. And then what's our a value? It's just 1. And then what's our c value? It is negative 7. So we've got 25 minus 4 times 1 times negative 7 all over 2 times a. And a again is just 1. So I'm just going to take that away because 2 times 1 is 2. I hope you know that by now. So we've got x equals, I'm just going to simplify it down. And you're going to need to remember, I'm going to go ahead and write this. You need to remember what you got to do first. What comes first, the minus or the times? So you need to remember you got the multiplication is always going to come first. So we're still going to have 25, but you wouldn't do 25 minus 4. You would do 25 minus all of that, which is 4 times 1 times negative 7, which is the same as just 4 times 7. So it's going to be 28. And don't forget that you've got a negative times a negative. So that's going to give us a positive. So in the end, we're going to have 25 plus 28. And that's still all over 2. And next step, just keep on simplifying. Negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 25 plus 28, which is 53. There we go, 53, and it's still all over 2. And here's the thing though, that can pretty much be our final answer. We can just come over here and just say x equals negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 53 all over 2. And just so I can make sure you understand what's happening here, is we can't simplify this because you've got the plus or minus on the top, and you can't really add a square root of 53. The square root of 53 isn't anything real. It's going to be some number a little above 7, but you can't simplify that down, so this is all we got to have. And a lot of times you'll see the answers written exactly like that, the negative 5 plus or minus the square root of something over something else, you know? But let me just show you what that means exactly, is it means we have x equals negative 5 plus the square root of 53 all over 2, and we also have, as another solution, negative 5 minus the square root of 53 all over 2. So those are the two solutions for this quadratic problem, but you'll most times see it just simply written as negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 53 all over 2. So that's specific for that problem. You're just going to need to remember for a quadratic formula, when you get an equation like this up here, just remember what your a, b, and c are, and then plug them into that formula. So that's going to be all for the quadratic formula. I hope you learned some, and I'll see you on the next